Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're back here on this Wednesday morning. We've got some exciting news, some brand new things to talk about with Nebraska football, a new quarterbacks coach, the Polynesian Bowl, a big game for Nebraska basketball against Rutgers. But before we get into all of that, please do us a huge favor. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button in our videos, go into the comment section. It helps other Nebraska people find our content. It helps other people share it and everything. So if you can do that, we really appreciate it. But Danny, like I said, Nebraska, a new quarterbacks coach, and Glenn Thomas. We talked about this actually on Saturday. When we've talked about Glenn Thomas quite a bit. And things pretty much worked out the way that we thought that they would. So I'll have two questions. One, how you doing this morning? And two, what do you think about Glenn Thomas?
Well, first, I'm doing all right. We got pounded with some more snow. It's very cold. I'm just looking outside right now. It does not look inviting. I can't wait for football season because that means summer, and I hate the cold. And two, Glenn Thomas, I'm a huge fan of this hire. People were like, oh, what about the Pittsburgh Steelers? He didn't do a good job with them. First off, he was not the quarterback's coach. He was an offensive assistant. Second of all, you look at his track record with Matt Ryan with the Atlanta Falcons, one of my favorite players from watching him at Boston College. And Ryan had some of his best seasons of his career under Thomas. And Thomas was also, mentored P.J. Walker on that 2016 Temple team. And I actually remember watching that bowl game that PJ Walker was in, and I thought, wow, this kid is really good. So, Walker ended up being a pretty good college quarterback overall, but Thomas undoubtedly played a role. And, I'll just come out and say it. I'm not sure why people are necessarily bashing this move because, again, it's not like he's going to need to run the offense. He's just coaching the quarterbacks, and we needed a dedicated quarterbacks coach because now we have a room with so much potential. And now we just have to unlock it. And that's been the issue for previous coaching staffs. And, now we have two Elite 11 quarterbacks and Glenn Thomas. I personally love the move. His NFL and college coaching experience certainly is a bonus. And I'm excited to see what he can do with this group because, he may have a relatively easy job as Dylan Raiola throws 72-yard passes over the mountains at the Polynesian Bowl. And, not to go off on a little thing, we'll talk about it later, but I was just watching some of the practice videos of Raiola's, throwing motion and release, and man, he makes it look so easy.
He does make it look really easy. And yeah, when I watched him throw it, it was, to me, it was plain and obvious that no Nebraska quarterback has ever had that much arm talent.
Yeah.
No quarterback that's ever come through this program has had that kind of arm talent. I will argue with anybody about that. But I think that Glenn Thomas is a great hire. I don't know why anybody would be upset about it.
They're looking at his Pittsburgh resume. I'll just say that, and they're looking at how bad the Steelers were, but the Steelers made the playoffs. And granted, Thomas didn't have a lot to work with, even if he was helping with the quarterbacks in that room. To be honest with you.
I mean, they still got, a lot out of it. People are just, that doesn't make, a great example of this was when Michigan hired Jesse Minter. Sorry for the Michigan references, but yeah, Michigan, he was at Vanderbilt as the defensive coordinator, and everyone's like, oh my God, look at his numbers at Vanderbilt. Look at Vanderbilt. It's what you did at the previous job doesn't matter. Okay. If Glenn Thomas had Matt Ryan in his prime, I'm sure that the numbers would have looked better this year. I mean, it does depend very much on, who you have playing the position. So, and you look at his career, man, like he's had a bunch of guys over 70%. His last year in college at Arizona State, he coached some guy named Thomas Borquette to a 71.2 completion percentage, which was the highest ever in Arizona State football history. And I've never even heard of that guy before. So I like his move. I like this move. He's been quarterbacks coach. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's worked with Rule. He's worked with Satterfield. There's going to be a familiarity there, and he's going to be able to focus only on the quarterbacks. And that's what didn't happen last year. And, I'm not even blaming Satterfield for that. He was never expected to be the quarterbacks coach. And I just think that this move seemed like Josh Martin was going to get moved to an analyst and they were going to find a quarterbacks coach. I know Dana Holgerson's still out there, and look, he could still get hired as an analyst or something in long term. I mean, was Dana Holgerson going to stay here and be the quarterback's coach for like 2 or 3 years? Probably not. He probably wants to be a head coach again someday. Whereas Glenn Thomas, this is basically what he does. So I don't know. I think he's probably reached like the pinnacle of his career. Maybe he can get, more out of hitching his wagon to Dylan Raiola, which hitching your wagon to a 5-star quarterback, not a bad career plan. So I think this is a smart move for Glenn Thomas, and I think it's a really, really smart move by Matt Rule in Nebraska.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see if there's any movement on the Holgerson front, because he is very much still out there. And so if we could add Holgerson in some capacity to this coaching staff as well, then that's a 2 home run hires right there. And you look at, quick shout out to Josh Martin. I thought that for how he was thrust into the role at the end of last summer, I thought the tight end position performed pretty well. I mean, let's face it, the quarterback play wasn't the best either, and I thought Thomas Fedoni had a really strong year. And I'm curious to see what Fedoni does this year. But shout out to Josh Martin for holding out the tight end position well. Bob Wager dealt with some stuff.
Yeah, I thought Josh Martin did a fine job. And he's still going to be on staff as an analyst. He's just going back to his old job, and that's. Like with Holgerson, I saw people on Twitter being, tweeting that he's going to be, co-offensive coordinator or something. Like, you people are delusional, man. Like, you are off your rocker. That's not happening. Okay, so first off, what coach is leaving? Because you realize, like, you have to have an on-field coach leave before you can add one. And who's going to leave on the staff that would make sense? I mean, obviously it's not going to be Donovan Raiola. It's not going to be Satterfield. It's not going to be Glenn Thomas. It's not going to be Garrett McGuire. So, like, there's no place for Dana Holgerson on the offensive side of the ball unless you're going to sacrifice a defensive coach, and they don't have really the bodies over there to do that. So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for Holgerson to come on as co-offensive coordinator. That's not going to happen. He could come in here as an analyst and make, $250,000 to, just basically break down film, give insight, different things like that. Lots of college programs do that. And that probably would be an attractive, job for him. He doesn't have to travel, doesn't have to, be in the limelight at all. Can just, focus on the football side of things. As a guy that's getting a big fat paycheck after just getting fired, he might be all right with that, at least for this year. I mean,
that sounds pretty sweet to me. Get a $500,000 and not have to travel, just analyze and help out. I mean, hell, I'll sign me up.
Yeah, that's they can still be around the team and around practice, and they probably coach players more than they're supposed to. But I mean, everybody does it, so whatever. Yeah. It's not that big a deal. Just don't get caught like Scott Frost. But I mean, at the same time, like Jim Leonard did that last year for Illinois. I don't know how much it helped them, but I definitely think if Holgerson's willing to do that, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I really think that this is a smart move with Glenn Thomas, because he's not gonna be looking to take another job after this season, in my opinion. No. I think he's going to be a part of this. And like I said, man, if you hit your wagon to a 5-star quarterback, like, that could be a really promising thing for all of these guys' career. I mean, Satterfield, for Glenn Thomas, for all these guys,
and for the players. I mean, let's be honest here too, for the players.
Absolutely, but yeah, it's been fun watching Raiola play, and that just, I think, hits home the fact that they need to get a big-time quarterback coach to just give him the coaching that he deserves to have, along with Kalen and Heinrich Harburg. I mean, that's going to help him too if he has to play at some point this season for whatever reason. So it'll be good for that entire room. And the way I think about it is, like, if Nebraska can get all these guys and keep them, this entire room, in 2025 and get that development, like, it could be the quarterback room could go from a weakness to a strength very quickly under Matt Rule. And I think, I wrote about this and I had some reaction to the Glenn Thomas hire last night at HuskerBigRed.com. But if you look at this offseason, man, like, Matt Rule, and I know Nebraska fans are sick of winning the offseason, and I get that, but he's done but he's done everything. We talked about needing a quarterbacks coach, and he went and got a guy that's got tons of NFL and college experience. Needed a running back, got one, like a legitimate top 10 running back in his recruiting class. They got help in the secondary. They got help at linebacker. They got help at wide receiver. They got more offensive line depth. So, I mean, in terms of everything that you wanted this Nebraska team to do, and the biggest thing was fixing the quarterback position. And they signed a 5-star quarterback, an Elite 11 quarterback, and got a new court. So, I mean, like, he's doing everything that he needed to do this offseason.
And I will say a couple things on the quarterback front. One, Alex Mansky is still going to come visit. Not sure when. I honestly don't think it will be this weekend, but he will be coming in for a visit, I believe. And then two, they offered quarterback Matt Zollers on Monday. He's a 2025 quarterback. He was a first-team All-League selection, played high school football in Pennsylvania, threw for 2,917 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions last season. He's a 4-star recruit, has a 90 overall numerical rating from 24/7 Sports. Third overall player in the state of Pennsylvania, 8th overall player in the 2025 class. So it sounds like if things, go south with Mansky anyway, they've already identified a new target. And, Zollers, I was watching some of his highlights, and I don't know if you had a chance to see this, Chris, but he's very much a pocket passing quarterback, strong arm, very accurate. So it seems like Nebraska has identified, the type of profile that they want in a quarterback, i.e., the pocket passing of Raiola and Kalen, and they're really starting to hone in on the targets that they want. And also not just 3-star targets and project players, but legitimate 4 and 5-star quarterbacks. And granted, it's going to be an easier sell too, especially if Raiola and Kalen do well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Zollers is interesting. Pennsylvania or Penn State was kind of trending as the favorite, and I believe they've taken another quarterback in the 2025 class, so that has somewhat opened the door there. Alex Mansky, like you said, is going to visit. I'm wondering if Nebraska's going to be doing basically 2 junior days, as reported by Brian Munson of Husker Online. They're going to have one this weekend, obviously, which we talked about on Monday, where there's a bunch of guys coming, and then there's some other guys coming on the 27th. Mooseberry, one of the recent in-state offers, says he's coming that weekend, so maybe they'll be trying to get Mansky. And then he didn't say exactly when, but it does show that he's still, in the mix. Like I said, I think it is going to be hard to land a 2025 quarterback, regardless, especially, one that's, like a 4-star in the top 200 or whatever, just because the path to playing time in Nebraska could be so long. You could be the third quarterback for, 3 years, basically, or, at least a couple of years with Dylan Raiola. I'm thinking ahead. But I mean, at the same time, that's why you have to recruit people. And I do think that maybe they're going to have to take, a little bit more of a project in this class, but you never know. I mean, Matt Rule and these guys do an incredible job on the recruiting trail, and kids want to be part of this team and this culture. So you never know. But I like that they saw how things were moving with Mansky. And the one thing the staff never does is they never rest on their laurels. They're always, if something goes against them on the recruiting trail, they've always got a plan B. And if they don't have one, they find one. So I think that is one thing I really like about this staff. They're just always bouncing back and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, and they always stick to the type of players that fit best for their scheme. Like we were just talking about, the pocket passing quarterbacks, physical running backs, the speedy wide receivers. They don't deviate, from, the type of players that they want at each position just because they weren't able to land one. They find similar players in terms of skill set, and they stick to it because, that's what they believe in. And that's something that's really, encouraging and admirable as well.
And yeah, and with the guys out in the Polynesian Bowl, I mean, we'll get Carter Nelson was at practice yesterday. I haven't checked out the practice reports from yesterday. I know on day one, obviously Dylan Raiola, wowed everybody. He looks the part. I mean, he looks like he could play in the NFL right now. I mean,
Yeah.
He's big. He's a big dude. I mean, it's one thing to say he's 6'2" or 6'3" and 230 pounds, but when you actually see it, like compared to, I mean, I saw him throwing next to Jake Merklinger, who's going, I think, to Tennessee. I think he's going to Tennessee. But at any rate, man, like it wasn't even like the throws that Dylan made, like when they were throwing like the lob passes, like the trajectory and just the ease with the way he threw the ball. And
he
so,
barely
man,
moves his arm. It's like a little like flick of the wrist, and
yeah,
next thing you know, the ball's already there. So
yeah, it's a flick of it is. It's crazy. He's a super impressive kid. I'm really excited to watch him play on Friday and to see also what Carter Nelson, can do. You never want to put too much stock into into
yeah.
these types of games, but it's just going to be fun. I just want to watch Dylan Raiola throw the football. So, I know we've seen him do that a lot, obviously against, and we've seen him play highlights in games and stuff, but it'll be fun to actually like sit in and watch him work with some of the better against and with some of the best high school players in the country.
Yeah, I feel like, just generally speaking, that the Polynesian Bowl is a very underrated bowl. They get a lot of talent to play in the game, and I feel like it goes under the bowl game radar a little bit. But, the thing I like about Raiola too is he's very self-aware, and it seems like he's ready for the spotlight. It seems like he's been trained his whole life for the spotlight. I mean, you listen to his interviews. He wants to be a transformational leader for the Nebraska program. He wants to wake the sleeping giant. Like, he understands what his mission is here, and he understands, what the fans want, and what this program wants to achieve. And you can't go just based off what the fans want, but he understands what it means to be a quarterback for the Nebraska football program, and he understands the tradition and history. You could say, yeah, in large part to his family, and that's fair, but it's still good to hear him kind of already grasp what he means to this program.
Absolutely. I think he knows, like, it's not a surprise to him what the pressure is going to be like, and the passion of the fan base. And but yeah, I mean, he talked yesterday about how we wanted to wake the sleeping giant, and Matt Rule's said the same thing, and Matt Rule found the quarterback to do it. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's hard not to hype people up, but man, I look at him, I look at Dylan Raiola, I look at Matt Rule, having a hard time with my words there. But I really have a hard time not seeing a lot of comparisons to Ann Arbor, Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy. I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of similarities between what Nebraska's building and what Michigan was able to do. I know I keep saying that, and people can call me crazy, but I said that when Matt Rule was hired. I thought that he was going to be Nebraska's Jim Harbaugh, and Dylan Raiola might be their JJ McCarthy, but in a much better sense. Like, I definitely think that they're not going to, Jim Harbaugh, just the way that he plays, like, if he only had to throw the ball 10 times a game, that's all. He just doesn't care about stats, or he just wants to win. So if he thought he could beat you 6-0 running the football 50 times, he probably would do it. But I don't think that that's going to be the way Nebraska plays with Dylan Raiola. And as a Michigan fan, it was frustrating at times to not see JJ McCarthy opened up more. And so, I mean, I do think that they'll be a little safer with Raiola, but this dude's going to ball out, and I'm just really excited to see what his future looks like.
I would rather not be safe with Rayola at all than have to deal with so many turnovers and stuff like that. And granted, we might have to deal with that if they open up with Rayola, but still, I mean, you got a 5-star quarterback for a reason, and now it's time to unleash the beast and awake the sleeping giant.
And put him, yeah. I mean, it's you got to get forged in the fire. Pressure makes diamonds, all that type of stuff. I think I just don't really believe that. I do believe in resting guys and kind of letting them learn and stuff, but this isn't the time for that. I mean, Dylan Raiola, he's the best quarterback on the roster. He's got the talent, and I think that he's got the mental capacity to handle this, and the leadership. And so, yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch him Friday night and spring game, and it's going to be. We're going to be talking about Dylan Raiola a lot over the next 3 years, and that's a very exciting thing for Nebraska football.
Absolutely, and then Danny Kaelin, and then we'll see after that. I mean, maybe Dayton Raiola, who knows? But it is a very exciting time for Nebraska football, and it's amazing what a difference of even a month makes. Because we were looking in November, where does Nebraska turn now, and where does what do they do in the quarterback room, and what if what happens if things they don't land their quarterbacks, and this, that, and the other thing. Now we're in much better shape than we were even just 2 months ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, and yeah, it's just I know Ohio State's really good, and they brought back a lot of people, but they still it's like I don't think that they upgraded at quarterback. I would take, if it was me, I would take Kyle McCord over Will Howard, and I wouldn't. That's just me.
I don't know.
I mean, I think they're pretty I mean, Will Howard, for one, I mean, the Will Howard played in the Big 12, and he started for, like, he's never really even been a full-time starter. He couldn't even beat out Adrian Martinez until Adrian Martinez got hurt. So, like, I mean, I think he's a solid quarterback. I'm not saying, but I don't think he's like an automatic upgrade over Will Howard. And, I definitely don't think Dylan Gabriel's an upgrade over Bo Nix and Michigan, whoever they lose. So, I mean, like, who's the best quarterback in the Big Ten next year, I guess, is my question. Like, Dylan Gabriel? I mean, Penn State's quarterback? Like,
No,
It's kind of, like,
Drew Aller is not. Trust me, Drew Aller. No.
I think he's better than you think, though. I honestly like. I honestly would take him over Will Howard. I just think that James
Ooh,
Franklin doesn't know what the
I
hell he's
don't know.
doing.
I don't
Because
know. I don't know about that one.
that kid can play. They just never let him throw the ball downfield. But
That's fair. That's fair.
So. I mean, at any rate, like there's the Big Ten's. I guess my point is the Big Ten's really wide open. I feel like going into next year, and I'm not saying that Nebraska is going to have a chance to compete for that next year or anything. But like if you look at, I mean, 2 years down the road, like by the time Dylan Raiola's a sophomore, Nebraska could have the best quarterback in the Big Ten. So like that's just I'm just throwing that out there. But when you look at the type of defense and running game and all that other stuff that we have, like if you give Nebraska the best quarterback in the 18 team Big Ten conference, that's a pretty exciting thing. And I don't think that that's a stretch to say that by 2025 that could be a very realistic possibility.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it'll also be interesting to see what they'll be able to do in the state of Florida, and because they got a big group up there right now, and we saw them. I saw some videos of them getting acclimated to the snow, and that was quite interesting. I don't think they like the snow too much, but welcome to Nebraska. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in Florida. And, if they can, I know they're already, Cortez Mills is going to be a visitor, I think, in the next couple of weeks here. So that's a Florida guy. And I'm going to be very interested to see how that turns out as well, because I think there's a lot of wide receiver talent down there, especially.
One thing I wanted to mention just real quick before we talk some hoops here to wrap up. Rowdy Bauer is a guy that I saw was offered yesterday or given the opportunity to play at Nebraska, which I think he'll be like a preferred walk-on. But he's part of the 2024 class, and he's a strong athlete in the state, a return guy. He tagged Coach Foley in there as one of his coaches when he announced it. So I'm wondering if he'll maybe be able to offer some return help, but just somebody to think about, as I believe he'll be joining the program probably as a preferred walk-on or something. But
we need a return guy, though. I mean, we needed a return guy last year, and hopefully we can actually return punts. But yeah, I mean, I think the more specialists we get, the better. And Bauer is a guy out of Norfolk. He's had contact with a lot of smaller teams. He was offered by Louisiana Monroe, and now 5'11", 185. He could be that shifty player, as a return guy, but we'll see how that goes.
And so shifting to tonight, big game, 6 p.m. Central Time, Nebraska playing at Rutgers. If you didn't see it, Joe Lunardi came out with his new, bracketology projections. Nebraska right now is one of the last 4 byes. So, one of the teams that would not have to play in the first 4. So they're essentially, one of the last 8 teams in the tournament right now in the at-large field for Joe Lunardi. The game's going to be on BTN tonight, Big Ten Network, so no Peacock or no BTN Plus or none of that crap. But it is going to be it's going to be a battle, man. Rutgers is listed as a 3-point favorite, and like we touched on this a little bit on Monday, but if you don't follow Rutgers basketball, or if you aren't familiar with them, like they literally, it's a street fight. They, it's like they could play a game and never score a hoop and be totally fine with it, because that's just the way they play defense. Their defense is incredible, but you look at their offensive numbers. So their field goal percentage, they shoot 39%, 354th in college basketball. Their 2-point percentage on offense this year, 44%, 354 in college basketball. Their 3-point percentage, 292, 339th in college basketball. Their free throw percentage, 66%, 311. So in every shooting category, they rank outside the top 300, which is like, I don't know how you can be that bad shooting the ball, but they're 319th in scoring, but where they make up for it is they're 27th in the country in defense. They only give up 64 points a game. If you look at their points per possession, defensively, they give up only 90, basically 0.9 points per possession. 92.7 is their defensive rating. Their offensive rating is just terrible, 97.3. So they average below a point per possession. So yeah, it's going to be, to me, how well this Nebraska team can execute offensively, and can the defense show up? Because man, if you can't have a good night defensively against this Rutgers team, like who can you play good defense against?
Yeah, and they had trouble on Friday against Iowa in terms of getting back on defense. They did a good job of trapping initially, but once Iowa started moving the basketball around, they had a little bit of trouble getting back. So I'm curious to see if they'll do a better job of that, on tonight. And this is going to be a big game for them. I think we've shown that we can be a competent offensive team, but the defense is what has hurt us in these last couple games. I don't think Rutgers really has as big an inside presence as Indiana did, for example, but I think that they still can, like you said, get to the line, play physical, play a tougher brand of basketball, and it's going to be interesting to see who steps up tonight. I mean, me personally, I was a fan of the job that Eli Rice did in limited minutes off the bench, so I'm wondering if we'll see more of him tonight, because that would certainly be a nice boost.
And one thing with Rutgers, they do have Clifford Omoruyi. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that name, but he's 6'11", was an All Big Ten center last year. Not great offensively. He's only averaging 9.9 points and 9 rebounds, but 3.4 blocks per game. So we'll see how that works inside with like Rink Mass and those guys. But his field goal percentage is down much, like down in the 40s from where it was last year. Andre Hyatt is a guy to know. He shoots 39% from the field, but 35% from three, makes 2 3-pointers per game. So that you can't let him get going. Mag is the other guy for Rutgers. He makes 1 3-pointer per game, 33%. They only have 4 guys who make over 30% from 3-point range. Nebraska has like 7. So like, I don't know, man. It's going to be, I guess, my keys for Nebraska are going to be, not turning the basketball over. Excuse me, I almost said football, but same thing. Because like Rutgers, you don't want to give them easy baskets in transition. Like they have a tough time scoring, and they want to make this like a 60, low 60s, 50 game. Like if this could be like 58, 55, that's exactly how they want to play. Just grind it. And, so you can't give them, you can't have like those pick 6 turnovers where you get free layups, and you can't have the dead ball, type of turnovers. So that's going to be key for Nebraska. And then winning the 3-point line, which shouldn't be that difficult, but they have failed to do it the last 2 games on the road. Wisconsin and Iowa just blew them out at the 3-point line. And, and even though this Nebraska team is much better defensively, it's still a Fred Hoiberg team that if they don't make threes, like they're going to struggle. And so they have to outscore Rutgers like if Rutgers finds a way to outscore Nebraska at the 3-point line tonight, the Huskers are in trouble.
Yeah. And, they work better offensively when they're more deliberate. And once you start getting them out of that deliberate sort of mode as a team, then they start to panic a little bit. So I'll be interested to see if that happens tonight. Hopefully not, but you never know.
And I have to, the offense wasn't that, they shot the ball very poorly against Iowa. I think they only made 4 threes. Like, I don't know what the percentage was, but I'd be surprised if that happened again. Casey, CJ, Bryce Williams, all these guys have shot the ball so well. Rutgers isn't going to make it easy, though. I mean, they're going to get a hand in your face every time. And the thing about it is you have to be mentally tough to win. I think they call it at the rack. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of the toughest places to play in the Big Ten. So at any rate, man, let's get it on the record. Nebraska is a 3-point underdog tonight. What's your prediction?
65-57 Nebraska.
I'm going to go, I'm going to say, that's a pretty good score. I'm going to go 64-58, right around there. I think I think we're right on the same for what game it's going to be. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle, I think, for Nebraska to score, but Casey, Bryce Williams, CJ, I think they'll do, and Rink Mass inside too. I think that they'll get enough buckets, and the defense will be good enough tonight to get a big win on the road.
Because I also think you don't have to worry necessarily about rotating as quickly with a team like Rutgers as you do with, say, Wisconsin and even Iowa, for example. I mean, I think in that respect, this game plays a little bit better into Nebraska's hands as well.
Yeah, I think that, if you're Nebraska, you don't have a problem with Rutgers, shooting some more threes. And, as long as you can do a little better job of contesting them. But, I mean, they don't like to shoot a lot of threes. So, really what the best thing, man, if you can do is make teams shoot those low percentage 2-point shots, make them shoot 2s, but the low percentage ones. That's what the great defenses do. And Nebraska was doing that, and hopefully they can get get back to doing that tonight. If you can protect the rim and do a pretty good job at the 3-point line, you're going to be a good defense. So, and they have been. They just got away from them against Iowa, especially, and Wisconsin's a very good team. But I do think that they will bounce back tonight, and that will, I think, calm the resume a little bit and kind of reaffirm where they're at in the bracketology right now.
Yeah, because I mean, look, they've got some tough games coming up. They have, especially in the month of February. I'm just looking; it's going to be absolutely brutal. We have Wisconsin on the first, then we have Illinois, Northwestern, Michigan, who's not having the best year this year, but still a tough team. Penn State, Indiana. So the month of February is going to be a little bit of a gauntlet here. So they got to finish out this month of January strong, and hopefully go into February with a little more of a cushion in terms of the record.
Yeah, and if they can win tonight, I mean, then you got Northwestern at home Saturday, Ohio State at home, Maryland on the road, and then a home game, obviously, against Wisconsin, which is going to be tough. But all those games are very winnable. So it would be nice to see Nebraska at least go like 3-2, in this stretch. And I just feel like if they finish, 11-9 is what if they just get 11-9, I feel like there's no way they're going to miss the tournament. So that's just get a win record in the Big Ten, and I think you're golden.
And I think it's achievable. I mean, I think this is a down year a little bit for the Big Ten, so I think it's achievable. Now it's just about executing.
Yep, and so hopefully we'll get it done tonight, man. It's not going to be easy though, but got to get back on it. So check that out tonight. We'll be back, you guys, for our live chat on Saturday. So we'll talk some recruiting. We'll talk the Polynesian Bowl, what we saw on Friday night. We'll talk some Husker hoops since they'll have a big game this weekend. But as always, guys, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, get into the comments section as well. We love to interact with you guys, and check out HuskerBigRed.com too. If you don't, we only put out a few videos a week, but we put out a ton of articles on HuskerBigRed.com. So make sure you're not missing that either. And
we're much better at writing than we are at this video stuff, but
yeah, most of the time anyway.
Yeah, most of the time. Lately, I've been slacking a little bit, but I'm gonna get back to it.
My pronunciation is much better writing than it is talking.
Well, because you can take the time and actually spell it out and delete and erase. We're live on video, baby, so you can't do any of that.
So yeah, if I spell it wrong or whatever, I can just go in and edit it and then nobody knows that it was wrong. So
it's always a plus.
That is always a plus. So all right, you guys. Hey, thanks. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we'll be back on Saturday. As always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.